My name is Willy Bolander. I study influence, persuasion, and leadership in selling and sales management, and I teach people how to sell. In this podcast, we'll talk to some of the world's top sales leaders and see what we can learn from them. Welcome to the Sales Lab. Every year in November, Florida State University hosts a massive event in Orlando, Florida. For business students, this is a sales role play and case competition, an opportunity to compete and get exposed to job opportunities with some of the world's best sales organizations. For companies, this is an unbelievable recruitment opportunity, bringing several hundred of the nation's best students, all already interested in starting their careers in sales, into one location for you to meet. So if you're a student looking to differentiate yourself and secure your dream job in sales, a marketing or sales professor looking to show off your students and connect them with great opportunities, or a sales manager or recruiter looking to acquire top sales talent, come learn more about the International Collegiate Sales Competition at www.icsc-fsu.com. That's www.icsc-fsu.com. Hello, everyone. This is the conclusion of our conversation with Laura Hume at IBM. We're going to talk about the marketplace within the company. This is true in a consulting situation like Laura's, but it's true in most organizations. There's complexity, there's informal networks, there's things to be navigated. Hope you get something out of it. Thanks. Looking at the clock and seeing that we are moving along quick here, I want to come back to something that we had talked about before I hit record about the matrix-sized organizations, especially since you brought up, this idea of learning and interacting with peers and using those opportunities to learn new things and gather new resources in a matrix-sized organization. And I will define that for us real quick.
If you get to any amount of size, you will have some matrices in your organization. To me, that means that you don't have you're working with people where you don't have direct reporting relationships. And it could also mean organizationally, like in a big organization, you have different org models where it's very centralized, so all of those reporting relationships flow up to the very top. Or you're federated. So maybe you're federated by geography. So each geography kind of has its own leader, and then that feeds up to the top. But all decisions, all systems, that kind of a thing. I find in consulting, we don't have really big pyramids under us. It is very matrixed in that we have pools of consultants that we can staff on projects with us. I have peers who may be in different sectors or industries who really know client relationships. So there are different kinds of partners at IBM and all the big consulting companies. So some of us are really deep in our content area. Like we have solutions, right? I have talent development solutions. I can go talk to CHROs or CIOs or heads of business and talk about their talent. But I do not have a double down on, I'm an XYZ big account. I know everything about this account. I know all of the players. So there's this kind of symbiotic relationship of I have the stuff to sell and the client partner's going, I have a client who might have some needs, and we have to find each other because the organization does not force us together. And sometimes it almost forces us apart because we're all busy and in our silos. And so for me, I think getting yourself branded early, being vocal, I've told people who come on and work for me, even if you don't get your right codes and all that, when I first start, I say yes to everything. Can you come help me with this? Yes. Can you help me with that? Yes. And it is getting to that win-win. So I'm going to help them, and I'm going to assume that we're going to build a relationship, which is super important in consulting. I'm going to build that really strong relationship. And then when they have an opportunity, they're going to know who I am, and they're going to reach out to me. And I'll get a reputation for that as somebody who's easy to work with, who's responsible, who'll get their work done, and who'll make them look good. And, eventually you get really busy, and you either have to start saying no or you have to build your team. But that's a good problem.
And so, essentially, so you have a marketplace, so to speak, within IBM of people who can provide different expertise, different tools, different, maybe relationships that they have with potential clients. And you have to be connected enough to know where to go shopping for what you need.
That's right. We all have to find each other, which is a really interesting dance to do, but it's also kind of fun. I think we're back to personality tests. I think it's a little harder for the introverts in the crowd who aren't really comfortable saying, hi, you don't know me, but I'm new, and I wondered if I could get some time on your calendar to introduce myself. that is not so hard for me, and I'm happy about that. I know it's harder for folks who that's just not in their comfort zone.
Yeah, and is that how that normally happens? Is an email, or it would seem more difficult with virtual work now where I can't just run into you at the water cooler?
Yeah, in consulting, we have not had much of a water cooler
Yeah,
ever because we're so distributed.
yeah.
It really helps onboarding if you have a great manager who will get you kickstarted and say, send out a big note. So when I came here to IBM, huge note with like 40 people copied. Hey, Laura's coming on. This is what she does. Here's her resume. You should talk to her. But then, of course, they didn't all set up meetings with me. I took that list and forwarded on and said, hi, I was told I should talk to you, and I'm so excited to. I'm going to get time on your calendar because it gave me permission to do that. That's a really great management thing. At this point, if there's somebody who I don't know, I just go ask, hey, I'm over here doing this. If you need to talk to somebody, if I'm legit, go talk to this person. But let's talk about maybe a joint offering, because that's really fun too. That's where the innovation happens, right? Not just me doing my thing, but looking for those connections to make more impactful solutions. And that may be with blockchain people that I don't work with every day, but I need to go find out. So anyway, it's a super fun space.
Yeah, so it sort of is incumbent on the manager, whatever level that's at, to make the introduction, to start that ball rolling in terms of making connections. As you're talking, I mean, it kind of reminds me of my own context, right? I mean, I have an opportunity to collect some data and I know how to analyze it in one way, but as I'm analyzing it, I realize that really what's needed is a different type of an analysis, and I'm not an expert in that. So I could take, I'm slow, let's say 6 months to try to figure out how to run that analysis, or I could be well connected as a result of conferences or, other projects I've been on that I know I can call somebody over at Texas and say, hey,
Absolutely.
you know how to do this. Can we sit and work together through this? So yeah, that's interesting. So in a
And that's
sense,
your matrix, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in a sense, we're all one entity, even though we're different specialty areas and even with some competition. Now, so let me ask you about that, though. Is there competition among the different specialists at IBM?
We call that sharp elbows. There's so much of
Ah,
it, we have a term for it, sharp elbows. Now, I'm happy to say there are fairly few of them, but it is true that if you have 6 partners all on the same job that you're selling, you're dividing that pie in 6 different ways. So organizationally, there is a barrier to connecting. My sense is I'm going to be as helpful as I can. We're going to win the work together, and I will have less than if I did it all on my own, but I'm more likely to have sold it if I work with the partners because they have
mhm.
those relationships. So let's go ahead and get this deal done, and I'll have a little bit less, and then I'll move on to the next. The other thing is it's more hands makes lighter work, so it's a little bit more volume to not just be the independent seller. But I like that. Again, either you start saying no because you're too busy, or you start growing your team. I want to grow the team. I want to grow the area. I want to grow the entire space. And how to do that, I think, is to make connections. And on any single deal, do I maybe get a little less because I keep bringing in experts? Yep. But that's okay. I think if I'm growing the team overall, I'm in good shape.
And when you say growing the team, do you mean just connecting informally with these other
No, I actually mean
specialists?
hiring people
So
because
you will have, so there starts to be some hierarchy underneath you. You have a literal team, but then that team will partner with these other consultants.
it's a matrix again. So I do have a team under me. We're fully working just on talent development. I also have people out in our organization that I can staff on jobs. And yeah, that's how that works. But by growing the team, it's also growing the area. So I'm leading talent development for North America. I want to grow the revenue and the size of my organization in terms of the clients we're able to work with, the scope of the work we're able to do. I want to grow all of that year after year after year. And that's working with lots of accounts and working on bigger and bigger deals. And bigger deals usually means pulling in other partners who have, or even partnerships outside of IBM who have different skills to bring to bear, but I think it's going to provide a better solution for the clients.
Some of the work that I've done is around the idea of intra-organizational relationships and social networks and the things I've already sort of alluded to earlier. But uh, a lot of what you're saying about the matrixized organization, I mean, I kind of think it describes I'd hate to say all, but maybe a lot, maybe most organizations, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's not presented as such, there might be somebody listening to this going to, kind of realizing, well, that's kind of my environment, right? I mean, I have to reach out to somebody in finance to figure out that, I've got this group of prospects that are interested in buying, but they didn't qualify for our normal financing plan for one reason or another. But then I went and had coffee with, Joe in
Yeah.
finance, and he shared with me that there's a special circumstance where there's some federal assistance if it's a minority owned business or if it's whatever, that there's some classification of special financing. And now all of a sudden, without engaging in an extra call, without doing any extra prospecting, I've just realized I can convert a certain percentage of these opportunities that I thought had stalled out and weren't going to happen.
That's exactly right. And there are those people in every organization that you're like, I don't know how to do this. And they're like, go ask Sally. Sally knows how to get things done. And why is that? It's because Sally is super networked.
Yeah. Now, of course, the tricky part about this is that, it's really easy to say, oh, go out there and network. Yeah, you should be well connected. You should rub elbows. You should make these connections. But the way that most people think about making connections is kind of, I'll call it the stupid way. Maybe it's not stupid, the obvious way, right? Which is, well, I'm going to go look around the room and see who's a big shot, and then I'm going to go be friends with that big shot.
Yeah.
And I'm saying it's stupid. That doesn't mean it's not effective. I mean, there's value in the big shots knowing who you are. I get it. It's not wrong. It's just very superficial. The next level, the deeper level, is going and finding the people that aren't on everybody's hit list. The VP of your area, everybody knows that person's the VP and everybody wants to have a relationship with that person. So who are they not after? Who is hiding somewhere in some other department? And it's not going to be obvious to you that you need to know who this person is. But if you can just sort of serendipitously run into them and, it turns out your kids play t-ball together and you start to talk one Saturday morning during the t-ball game or something. And all of a sudden you realize, wow, this person has a lot of information, a lot of insights, a lot of ideas that are going to help me perform. And nobody else is bugging him right now. So
Yeah.
I sort of have a monopoly on this resource. Now, whether I want to keep that as a monopoly or not is a separate issue. But, it's these less obvious types of connections that sometimes end up being more valuable. Yeah, I want the boss to know who I am, but I also want to know what's inside this person's head that none of my peers are aware of. I want that insight that's going to allow me to differentiate.
I would also offer, this is back to our discussion about Trevor, that networking just for networking's sake has not been particularly effective for me. I think I'll pat my own self on the back. Like, I get known at a company really fast. I'm really happy to go introduce myself to people, but I usually have a reason for it. Like, hey, I heard that you knew the client that did this, or I heard that you were involved with this project. Can you tell me more? I think it works better than, like, if you throw me into a big party with lots of folks I don't have. I'm actually kind of horrible at that.
Mm-hmm.
I sit with my one person. I know I look like an introvert, and I'm not hugely extroverted, but I look like an introvert because I don't have a reason to talk to them. But in a work setting, I am happy to reach out to somebody if I think that they know something. So when my manager gave me that list, she also gave me their roles and said, this person is responsible for this person is really great in that. And when I called them, I then had a reason to connect with them and learn from them. And I think that made it a more powerful interaction and probably more memorable.
Yeah. Now, so you had a reason, but it was based on something about them. You were trying to learn about them or learn about something they had done. Is it necessary that there's a reason, like I have a specific opportunity in mind right now, and that's why I'm reaching out? Or is it okay to be more open-ended, I guess, more exploratory?
Oh, I think it's fine to be more exploratory. I just think it's a little helpful if you've done a little research and you know who they are, not just their level, but like, what would you like to learn from them? If you don't have an actual ask from them, I think most people are really happy to talk about what they know about and are glad to share that. So my first few weeks, it was that. And then honestly, third day in the job, I was talking to a client. And then I actually really had to reach out and say, okay, who knows about this, and this? and was starting to find out who knew who in the zoo. And then it just kind of snowballed from there.
Interesting. Well, I'm looking at the time. I know we're a little bit after 11. I do have one final question about Trevor. What part of Trevor do you like the least? And I'll answer first. For me, I think it would be his face.
Trevor. Honestly, I have not found anything that I don't like. I'm sure there are things, but I have not found anything I do not like about Trevor. He is awesome.
I'm just testing him because he's on the call, but he's muted, and I'm trying to provoke his anger. Well, thank you, Laura. I'll go ahead and stop the recording now. That's it for this interview. I hope you got something valuable out of it. Of course, if you did, be sure to subscribe and rate this podcast on whatever app you use to listen. Also, share this with your colleagues and friends, and let's continue to have a deeper discussion on all things related to selling and sales leadership. See you next time in the Sales Lab.